Doctor Who Series 14 already has quite an impressive cast, with Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson obviously as the leads, the 15th Doctor and Ruby Sunday, Gemma Redgrave back as Kate Stewart, Arnarin Barnard as Roger Ap Gwilliam, I hope I've got the pronunciation right for that now. But now 2 new cast members have been revealed in the form of Anita Dobson and Michelle Greenidge. The names of their characters haven't been given, and indeed this news did actually come out about a week ago, maybe more. But yeah, I haven't got around to covering it on the channel yet, so I thought I'd cover it today and give some thoughts and speculation about who these characters could be. Because like I say, we're still very much in the dark about who they are. We haven't been given any names or information or anything apart from these 2 photos of the 2 of them standing beside similar looking, but I think slightly different blue doors. So neither of these 2 ladies are particularly familiar to me already. I hadn't heard of them before this announcement. I mean, Anita Dobson, if you look her up, if you don't know, is married to Brian May. She's got quite a prolific acting career and is perhaps best known for playing Angie Watts in EastEnders. Michelle Greenidge, meanwhile, came onto the scene more recently, but again has had lots of roles over the past decade, 15 years or so, including actually a guest role in Rusty Davis's show It's a Sin from a few years back. I don't remember the character she played particularly. I imagine she was perhaps one of the family members of Mari Douglas's character, but I can't quite remember the ins and outs of it. And she was actually spotted on set on the day of this announcement, because basically this announcement was done to tie in with filming going on in Bristol, which I still aim to cover in a future filming update on the channel at some point in the near future. But yeah, she was there, and there was another character as well, interestingly, another woman who's also been spotted at some filming, I believe in Cardiff. She was also at the filming in Newport. She's been all over the place, basically. This woman with kind of long, sort of white hair with sort of strange lines, strange markings down the sides of her face, sort of down her cheeks, wearing like a black outfit of some description, and kind of behaving in a very strange way, doing like strange gestures and things. She kind of reminds me like of a female version of Zellin, say, the character, the villain from Can You Hear Me, the Jodie Whittaker episode. Kind of that similar sort of a vibe of a villain, dressed in black, kind of behaving in a strange, creepy way, like standing outside of houses and stuff, or standing in the middle of the street, just like doing strange stuff. And that's precisely what she was doing in Bristol. They were filming on this Bristol street, which is doubling up as a London street, and she was just kind of there in the middle of things. Not dissimilarly to how Neil Patrick Harris was in the filming, also in Bristol, but in a different part of Bristol, last year for the 60th specials, where he was kind of just stood among the chaos, sort of dancing or whatever, and there was all this stuff going on around him. There's a similar sort of vibe here, where she was just stood in the middle of the street, behaving in a really peculiar looking way. Michelle Greenidge's character basically like walks past, I think she's on the phone or something, and then gets creeped out and runs off. And the identity of this 3rd actor, this 3rd woman, rather curiously hasn't been revealed to us. So whereas with this, whereas with Kate Stewart, with Gemma Redgrave, when she was on set, they have done these cast announcements, these official announcements, to kind of, stay on top of the news, to make sure it's all coming from an official source rather than just from set photos. They haven't done that for this other character, which kind of suggests that, maybe there's something particularly mysterious about her that they don't want us to know. Maybe she's some returning villain or some really important villain that we're not meant to know too much about at this stage. Or I guess as well, she could just not be a famous enough actor to warrant a press release like this. I don't think she's actually been identified so far, from the set photos. But yeah, that is a little bit curious how she's been very much in the public eye, but also kind of kept out of the public eye in terms of the official channels and stuff. But turning our attention back to the 2 characters at hand, the 2 actors at hand here, Michelle Greenidge and Anita Dobson. And Michelle Greenidge, like I say, was spotted on set during the day. Now Anita Dobson actually I don't think was spotted during the day, but she was photographed like leaving the set, kind of getting into a car or something on that Bristol street. So presumably she was there as well that day. Presumably these 2 locations where they've been photographed, come from that same shoot as well. Presumably these doors were doors on houses on that street, and presumably they were maybe filming inside those houses or around those houses, maybe like just outside of them. Like I say, although the film was taking place in Bristol, that street was actually doubling up for a street in London. I believe in Notting Hill, there was all the set dressing and stuff, signage, what have you. So that would seem to suggest that perhaps these two unnamed characters are both London residents, which at least kind of gives us a little bit of a clue, about who they might be, what kind of characters they might be, and what kind of role they might be playing in the stories, or indeed in the series as a whole. I mean, one theory I've seen is that one of these two women is connected, to Ruby Sunday in some way. Perhaps one of them is her mother, because I believe in dialogue overheard on set, Millie Gibson, who was on set as well, was kind of on the phone maybe to her mother, or like saying, Mum, don't do this, or something along those lines. So, either of these women could be like her mother or her grandmother, maybe. I mean, perhaps with an Anita Dobson, that would be more likely that she was maybe playing more of a grandmother type role, like with Wilf, back with Donna back in the day. It could be a similar thing going on here. And similarly, Michelle Greenidge could be playing Ruby Sunday's mother, and not her birth mother, because obviously the skin colour is different. But perhaps Ruby Sunday is an orphan, perhaps this character is her foster mother, perhaps she's been adopted or something along those lines. Or perhaps, alternatively, sticking with this idea that Millie Gibson herself, in real life is 18, coming on 19, perhaps if the character is also that age, then that would be university age, assuming they went to university. So it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to suggest that perhaps, Ruby Sunday is a university student, and one of these women is her landlady, perhaps, for her accommodation. In which case we could be getting a slightly similar story to Knock Knock from Series 10, and these characters could be playing a similar role, one of these characters to David Suchet's landlord from that story. And indeed, the way these photos are set up, with the doors and stuff, kind of standing either outside a door or in a doorway, it does kind of suggest a similar sort of vibe to that character and to that setup and to that story. So perhaps that's what's going on here. Or I suppose alternatively, that they could just be one-off guest characters. It could be a bit of stunt casting, particularly with Anita Dobson. Maybe it's not a massive role within the series itself, or even within the story itself. I mean, we have seen this in Doctor Who before, and people were quick to point this out when the announcement came, that, we've had things like, Bill Bailey in the past, or, I don't know, Greg Davis to some extent as well, or kind of Mitchell and Webb maybe, like comedians or celebrities that maybe haven't had loads to do in the stories that they've appeared in, but it's nevertheless kind of been a big deal for them to be appearing in Doctor Who, even though the role itself wasn't that big. So it could be a similar sort of thing going on here. I mean, particularly with Anita Dobson, she's like 73 years old, I think. So I wouldn't imagine she's going to have a role which involves, her being active lots. Similar to like Barbara Flynn in Flux. All of her scenes were restricted to one set, recorded probably over a period of a couple of days. And yes, I guess COVID could have played a part in that as well, the restrictions they were working with at the time, as well. But I don't know, with this, it's a funny one. I think, my gut instinct, it's RTD, he does like his casting like this, he doesn't like getting people involved in the show, from other walks of life, from other shows, from the showbiz world. So I would kind of trust in him to give these two some meaty roles to play with, and I think, as well, I would hope from the fact that we've got these casting announcements, it's this early, because Series 14 isn't going to be airing until like this time next year at the earliest. I would hope that these two have a fairly big role in proceedings, they get a lot to do, there are perhaps mysteries involved with these characters, secrets and things to be revealed. I mean, at the end of the day, as Doctor Who fans, we will always look at these people and kind of say, oh, maybe it's the Rani, maybe it's the Master, maybe it's like Romana or Susan or Tactian, all these kind of things, you see it all the time. Whenever we get like any cast members revealed, it's like, oh, it must be a returning character, it must be this, it must be that, and it could very easily not be the case, but I think, with it being Russell and with the news coming this early, I wouldn't be surprised if there was more to these characters than meets the eye. As well, Russell teased in an Instagram post about these two, his own Instagram post sort of revealing the news. He teased that there was something significant about the doors. Now, obviously the doors are kind of blue, like the doors of the TARDIS, I suppose. That could be intentional, that could not. There are kind of two blue doors, but two different blue doors, so it's not the same door across these two photos. At least it doesn't look like it is. I think at face value, to me, it does sort of suggest, like I say, something similar to what we saw in Knock Knock in Series 10, where maybe that there's something, funny going on. Maybe one of these women is a landlady, like I say, and they've got problems at their property, or maybe they are a problem. Maybe they're like really evil, like David Suchet's character, and kind of causing trouble there, or I don't know, maybe something like that. Maybe something like the Lodger in Series 5, where there's this kind of alien entity taking over this property, or buried deep within this property. Maybe the house is alien somehow. Maybe the house is alive, something like that. All these ideas have kind of been touched on in Doctor Who before, but I wouldn't say no to kind of seeing a new spin on them in Series 14. So that's just about everything I have to say about the casting of Anita Dobson and Michelle Greenidge and the characters that they could be playing. Who do you think these characters could be, and are you excited to see these actors appear in Doctor Who? And also, what do you think is the significance of these 2 blue doors? Whatever your thoughts, please make them known down in the comments below. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. But otherwise, until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.